Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Break the Fake, where we debunk fake news and combat false narratives. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and let's get rolling. So while Washington tightens sanctions on Russian oil, Bulgaria and Romania have found themselves in a classic Eastern European dilemma, trying to quit Russian energy while still hooked onto it. Officially, both pledge loyalty to sanctions, but unofficially, they're just looking for a way to keep the lights on without lighting a diplomatic fire. According to Politico, both countries are stuck between a refinery and a hard place. If Lukoil's massive Burgas plant shuts down, Bulgaria would lose 80% of its domestic fuel supply. In Romania, the smaller Petrotel refinery faces a similar problem. It keeps fuel flowing not only for Romanians, but also for Moldova, a neighbor that depends on it for diesel and transport. So both governments are improvising. In Sofia, Parliament passed a law allowing the state to take over Lukoil's Burgas plant, appointing a manager, approving a sale, even nationalizing if necessary. Meanwhile, officials are quietly lobbying for sanction exemptions. In Bucharest, Energy Minister Bogdan Gruia-Ivan says Romania is preparing for any scenario, which is the polite way of saying, yeah, we have no good options. Even if a solution appears, finding a buyer for these refineries will be nearly impossible. Few investors dream of owning a business that comes with Russian logistics, Western sanctions, and moral headache. Bulgaria and Romania are trying to balance two imperatives, fuel and principle. But when you sit on an oil barrel and start negotiating with both sides, you're not just balancing, you're waiting for someone else to strike the match. Russian intelligence has reached a new low in its disinformation war. This time, FSB operatives posed as Ukrainian soldiers to record a fake video threatening Americans. The clip was addressed to U.S. businesswoman Erica Kirk, widow of the late Charlie Kirk. It's a calculated move to exploit grief and use a deeply divisive and tragic event to provoke outrage across the political spectrum. In the video, a man in a Ukrainian uniform reads from a script while holding a rifle. English subtitles calls it a message to Americans. The accent and delivery gave everything away though. Flat, artificial, robotic. Ukrainians recognized the fake instantly. But the point was never to fool them. The audience was American, where the topic itself has already become a fault line.
Звертаємося до Еріки Кірк. Якщо ти будеш говорити те, що говорив твій чоловік, закликати віддати українські землі москалям, припинити допомогу Україні, ти помреш так само, як і твій чоловік. Бережи свою шию, Еріка.
Now the aim was to turn that divide into a weapon, to feed both sides with a story they could use against each other. For one camp, it confirms that Ukraine is out of control. For the other, it looks like an attack from bad faith actors exploiting tragedy. Either way, the argument grows and Washington's support for Kyiv becomes just another red versus blue issue. And that is the real goal. You see, this fake wasn't just about Ukraine. It was about the United States, about seeing how easily emotion can be turned into ammunition. Moscow doesn't need to convince anyone that it's right. It only needs to make people too angry, too divided, and too tired to care. And that is how disinformation wins, not with belief, but with exhaustion. And just when you think Russian propaganda has hit rock bottom, it grabs its shovel. The Kremlin's latest exclusive is actually a rerun. The old tale about Ukrainian Nazis being treated in Poland at taxpayers' expense. When creativity runs out, they just start re-uploading their own fakes. This time, pro-Russian accounts are pushing a screenshot, supposedly written by an outraged Pole. In it, he complains that Ukrainian Nazis get free medical care. The picture shows a man with Nazi tattoos, and that's about all that's real. The same image made the rounds back in 2023. No proof the man is Ukrainian, no sign the photo was taken in Poland, just another ghost from the archive rebranded for a new wave of outrage. Now, there are no Polish signs in the frame, no hospital markings, nothing that connects it to reality. But Moscow doesn't bother with details anymore. The story isn't meant to prove anything, only to linger, to keep resentment alive and feed the sense that someone somewhere is cheating you. Again, that's how these fake work. They're not convincing, but slowly wearing down the instinct to care if something is true. Now, it seems Russian propagandists have finally run out of not just arguments, but also logic. Their latest claim? The British royal family is allegedly preparing a terrorist attack at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Huh? The people whose biggest daily threat is lukewarm tea or corgi with attitude are now apparently planning a nuclear sabotage. According to Kremlin analysts, Britain is preparing some kind of incident at the plant, supposedly to blame Russia and escalate the conflict. And the supposed mastermind? Not NATO, not the CIA, not even the dark forces of globalism, but the crown itself. And at this point, Moscow can't decide who's prosecuting more, Trump, Zelensky, or King Charles with a cup of tea and a suspicious glance.
Теракт, я по-другому это не назову, который запланирован британцами, связанный с Запорожской атомной электростанцией, суть которой заключается, мы пока не понимаем, как это должно быть сделано, но это в том числе может быть какой-то и десант, который они высадят, перебросив через Каховское водохранилище. То есть ввести станцию в критический режим для того, чтобы произошло расплавление реакторного отсека и произошел, условно говоря, чернобыльский вариант, выброс радиоактивного облака, который, по их подсчетам, пойдет через контролируемую Киевом территорию и затронет часть Европы. И дальше медийно они это раздуют, обвинят в Россию вот в таких сложных вещах. Тем самым это еще серьезнее качнет конфликт. Они попробуют подтянуть уже и снова американцев и европейцев для продолжения конфликта. Что для нас это говорит? Что корона, а это не премьер-министры, которые меняются там как перчатки. Корона для нас основной враг. И, судя по всему, ведь это не первый доклад наших спецслужб, это не первый разговор о том, что британцы действуют в глубину. Они не кричат, как Трамп, они не выступают с трибун, не рассказывают, что мы там самые сильные или самые великие. Они мелко и очень точечно гадят. Когда президент выступал по поводу, значит, на Госсовете, по поводу, связанного с, условно говоря, с нашим национальным единством, ведь британцы – это одни из тех, кто говорят, что мы воюем не с армией, мы воюем с народом. И наша задача – разделить его, наша задача – действовать туда, в глубину. И в этом отношении, мне кажется, что британцы уже накопили достаточно серьезную критическую массу с точки зрения действий, которые делают против нас, но и критическую массу того, что происходит в самой Британии. Там тоже огромное количество проблем, миграционный кризис, и, в принципе, там поднести спичку, там тоже очень серьезно может.
And right on cue, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service backed up the fantasy, claiming that the West is preparing to accuse Moscow of causing an accident and that NATO is urging Kyiv to commit sabotage, which, of course, is the usual Kremlin translation of, we're about to do something ourselves. Meanwhile, the Zaporizhzhia power plant is under Russian occupation. It's Moscow that turned it into a military base, stationed troops there, and keep the staff effectively hostage. So every talk show about Western sabotage sounds like a pyromaniac accusing firefighters of arson. But the royal family is just the latest name on Moscow's list of imaginary enemies. Yesterday it was NATO, today is King Charles III. The plot never changes, only the cast. Each new accusation is louder, stranger, and more desperate. A way to keep the audience entertained while the story itself falls apart. Because when you can't win in the real world, you invent one where even a wizard or a king is out to get you. And with that, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.